Today's guest is Reverend Bill McDonald. Besides having 3 near-death experiences, he is an award-winning poet, author, inspirational and motivational speaker, film advisor, minister, YouTuber, artist, Vietnam veteran, and mystic. Bill, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you giving me some of your time.
Well, you left out my most important duty. Grandfather. 6 grandkids.
That's awesome.
6 grandkids, 2 kids, but only 1 wife. Keeps life simple that way.
Yes. And it's good to say less expensive if you don't change wives.
You know how you keep your marriage together from the very beginning. I've been married 51 years, but you always introduce her as your first wife. This is my first wife, Carol. And then the second secret to longevity in marriage is never allow your wife to own a handgun. But being Scott Irish, this old grandfather I met, and when I got married, he goes, "You want to know the secret, laddie?" I go, "What secret?" He says, "We've been married over 60 years." I said, "Oh, what's the secret?" He says, "We go out twice a week." Okay, to what? We go out and we eat the best. I go out and we eat the best restaurants. We have the best wine, have a great time, stay out late, come home when the whole neighborhood's asleep. And we do that. I said, that's successful? He goes, "That's right." He says, "I do it every Tuesday night, and she goes out every Friday night."
Yeah.
Well, great.
As I look through your YouTube channel, there are many, many things we could talk about. But where I want to start with is, can you give us a brief overview of your near-death experiences so we can get a little background of you?
Okay, well, first off, brief is not in my vocabulary. That's not one of my modus operandi, especially being Scott Irish. We're never going to shut up. Mm-hmm. So there is no brief, but I will abbreviate as best I can. So actually, I've had 3 near-death experiences and thousands of what they call STEs, spiritually transforming experiences. Some of them even more phenomenal and more inspiring and more life-changing and altering than the near-death experience. See, a lot of people, and I mean that a lot because I just know a lot of people that have near-death experiences. They have a near-death experience, or maybe they have 2 or whatever. I've had 3, which is not uncommon. But for me, the near-death experiences weren't this thing that changed gears in me and, now I got to do this. Now I have these abilities. I kind of started off as long as I can remember back in the 40s, meditating. At 2-3 years old, I was making up my own meditations and stuff. And I was having spiritual transforming experiences at 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And an alien abduction at 5. So that's another whole story. But I had first near-death experience at 8 years old when I was admitted to the San Jose County Hospital as a ward of the court, basically, of the county. And I was told I was going to die. I had both my lungs were filled up with fluid. I had double pneumonia. I had what we used to call Bright's disease of the kidney, which is a kidney disease. And back then there wasn't these ready available dialysis and treatments and all kinds of other stuff. We're talking 1954, 55, around that time. When you got stage 4, stage 5 kidney disease, it was pretty bad. I wasn't given much of a chance, and I had about 4 or 5 other things wrong at the same time. So when I went in the hospital, my mother and my stepfather dropped me off, and they were only there a few minutes, and they just put me in a gurney and took me away. And I never, that was it. I wouldn't see them for a couple of weeks. And I'm put in this room, and they put needles in my back, take some fluids out, and I'm left alone in isolation. And I was spent almost a year, basically pretty much by myself, just seeing staff to bring in food or, give you a bedpan, total bed rest. So as a side note, people go, "How are you handling this shutdown?" I go, "Hey, I've trained for this." Yeah. I've gone a year on bed rest, not being able to leave the bed, no television, no radio, no toys, visitors about 15 minutes a week
Wow.
on the weekend. That was it. And no school, no nada, nothing. Anyway, so I was there the first night or two, and first time I've been away from home by myself, which was, boom, all of a sudden you're in this room by yourself, in a building by yourself. And I'm laying in bed and I could hardly breathe. It was just like, I kind of breathe out and it was like nothing coming in. And next thing I know, I'm kind of floating. And I know I'm kind of floating because I'm sitting up, but the rest of the body, the human flesh body is underneath me. And I'm going, and that must be attached to me. I'm 8 years old. Mm-hmm. But I know that's not me. That's just the body, right? So anyway, it was an interesting first time out, but it wasn't really my first time out astral traveling or out of body experience, but it was for a near-death thing. It was interesting. And the room lit up, to make this thing short and sweet, because I had 3 of these things. This was an interesting one because the room was like filled with like clouds, and there was light emanating from these clouds. And I felt great peace, felt great love. And you realize I was 8 years old. I was alone, abandoned, and just had some medical procedures done, and there's nobody there to hold your hand. And, so it felt nice. It felt like somebody cared. It was like, no, we're here for you. I mean, it was like nice. And then I realized that I was detached from my body. And at that age, I'm thinking, well, can I go back to it or can I leave? It wasn't a big thought process. It wasn't like now and later in life you can make it. It wasn't like I'm going to have to think about the decision. I'm just thinking, well, that's interesting. But then what happened was, when I'm enveloped in this cocoon of love, I get this panorama. It was like somebody showing videos on a screen of clouds, because the images were on these clouds, and it was a rollout of major events coming in my life in the next 50 years from that point. So I was 8.5, and I'm seeing stuff all the way up to almost 59. As it turns out, I didn't know that at the time, but as it turns out later, I'm going, oh, that's right about now, because I reached that point. And we'll talk about that. So I saw who I was going to marry. I saw myself in a war with helicopters. I didn't know where Vietnam was. I mean, early 1950s, an 8-year-old kid, I had no idea what Vietnam was. I didn't know what a Huey was, and he didn't have them. But I saw all that stuff, and I saw these battles. I saw these scenes that later on, when I actually went to Vietnam, it was just all déjà vu. Oh, okay, I better duck. There's a bullet coming. Oh, okay, we're going to crash this time. I mean, it was pretty much, I knew what was going to happen. So, but I saw my children. I saw where I was going to live. I saw the jobs I was working on. I saw these miles markers in my life. And so I knew at that point, when I'm seeing all that obviously I'm going back to that little body laying there. I'm not going to die. But 2 numbers in the middle of this thing, 2 numbers kept flipping around. A 29, and it would flip over and it looked like a 59. A 2 could look like a 5 if it flips right.
Yes.
So it was kind of doing that 2 to a 5 thing. It would go 29, 59. And I didn't know what that meant. At the time, I thought, well, maybe that's when I'm supposed to die, 29, maybe 59. And then at some point, about 15, 20 years ago, somebody told me, oh, don't you know Saturn comes every 29 years? When you're 29 and when you're just about 59, Saturn changes, and it's kind of like a spiritual rebirth. It's like a death and a rebirth. Saturn comes into your life. And I didn't know that. So I didn't know which one of those it was. But that leads into my second near-death experience, because now you got to fast forward from 8 years old to the end of this where I said, 50 years? Let's go to the end of 50 years. Mm-hmm. So now I'm almost 59. I'm 58 and a half. When I had those visions, I was 8 and a half. I think it was like October, November. My birthday's in March, so you can figure it out. It's almost a half. And so I was in India. I actually had this desire since I was 8, 9 years old. I read the book at 9 years old. I read the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. If anybody listening to this or watching this has not read that book, don't consider yourself a seeker until you've read that. That will just open up your eyes. I mean, everybody from Steve Jobs to the Beatles to everybody that's been anybody has been kind of inspired by the book. And the book deals with a chapter about Babaji. And Babaji is this avatar that nobody heard of before 1946, not in America, not in the West, until he put it in his book and he exposed, here's this great being that's been looking after us and been looking after Krishna and Jesus and all these great ones, and bringing this new meditation, which was an old meditation, which kind of died away, Kriya Yoga. And he brought it forth and transmitted it and taught this great yogi, Larry Masha, in this cave in the Himalayas. There's this whole intricate story about this cave, how he finds them, and they meditate for 9 days or whatever it was in this cave, and great transformation takes place. And he brings that into existence again so people can learn this Kundalini energy rising meditation. That's just the background. I'm giving you that because I was inspired by that by 8, 9 years old, and I go, I got to go to that cave. I mean, at 9 years old, I want to go to India and I want to go to that cave, right? I mean, I tried when I graduated high school, 24 hours after I was out of high school, I tried to go to the South. I went to South Pacific and I was going to go to India that way, and ran out of money, and ended up living in Hawaii and coming back. And then later on, when I was in Vietnam, and they told me, hey, if you sign up for an extra year of combat, this great temptation, extra year of combat after I've been wounded and blown up and shot down, if you sign up an extra year, we'll send you anywhere in the world you want to go. You get free 30 days leave. We'll fly you there. And I thought, well, I could go to India that way. Then I thought, yeah, not a good idea. My year's up. I'm going home, right? Sure. I mean, how many times do you want to get blown up and wounded, right? So, and then I scheduled a couple of trips that got canceled, but life happened. Finally, in 2004, I went with a buddy and we flew to India, and I started a 10,500 mile journey around the country of India. I mean, we were up in the Himalayas, we were out in the desert, we were in Mumbai, we were in Calcutta, whatever the new name of that is now, but people know it as Calcutta. We were in Delhi, we were up by the Pakistani border, we were up the source of the Ganges, we were everywhere. I mean, I spent months there. Now, we were looking for Babaji's cave, and I hired this guy that says, I'll go all these places. Yeah, great. I'll pay for your gas. I'll pay for your hotel. I'll pay for your food. I'll pay for your wage. But I got to get to this area where this thing's at. I didn't know much about it. I did some inquiry, and I found out that there was an ashram in this little village up in the Himalayan mountains. And so we went there and went to the ashram. It was a YSS ashram. It stands for an Indian name. But it's actually Self-Realization Fellowship. That's their Indian group. In the United States, it's SRF. There, it's YSS. And so we found the caretakers that take care of Babaji's cave. And there was a Swami there. We showed up just as there was a special holiday and special stuff going on where everybody was going to the city of Ranchi, Ranchi, whatever it's called, Ranchi, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody left except for this Swami and one caretaker. And they go, I told them what I wanted. They said, well, there's nobody can take you up there, and it's almost impossible to find. And I told the guy, I said, look, I've waited 50 years. I'm here now. I don't know if I'm ever coming back. And then in part of my mind thinking, I might even die. I might not be here back in 59. I might not even be around. So I got to see it now, right? And he said, well, we'll think about it. So I spent a couple of days there. Anyway, the next day I get up. It's cold. You could see your breath. It's that cold. It had a bucket of ice water to wash. I mean, literally ice water. It had to break the ice on the top of it. And I had a breakfast of potatoes and rice, which is that's it. Well, I thought, okay, that works. Mm-hmm. I said, I want to go see this cave. And so he discouraged it, said there was nobody around. Nobody's ever found it on their own. I said, give me directions. He says, okay. So he pulls out a piece of paper, takes a pencil, and just kind of chicken scratches a bunch of stuff around going, well, if you go down this road and you drive, I don't know, 40 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, I don't know, something like that, and you'll come to a fork in the road. Maybe it's just before that or just after that. There'll be a road off to the left. Don't take the first one you see. Maybe take the second or the third one. I mean, that was the kind of directions. It was like, wow. My driver's looking at me like, what? And then he says, then once you get there, there's all these trails, but the one that's marked, take that. That'll take you to the top. And then if you want to go, here's the keys to the gate, because they lock it up, and they got a temple there and everything. And he says, if you can find that and be back here by 5:30 tonight, this is early in the morning, because I locked this ashram up, and you'll have all your bags and everything will be locked up, and you'll have to stay at a hotel. And I said, okay, we'll do it. He says, you can find it? And he laughed, right? And I said, I'll find it. So my driver's looking at me like I'm crazy. He looks at the Swami, and the Swami goes, anyway, so we leave, we get in the car, we drive down the road, we drive about 44 minutes. I go, stop, look around. Okay, if we come to another dirt road, take it. We did. Mm-hmm. Then we got that, and then we come to another place. I said, well, take that. Anyway, we ended up parking on this road because the road ended. It's a good time to stop when there's no more road. Yeah. And I see all these cow trails, animal paths going up this mountain, and it looks like any one of them could be the trail. You can't tell a people trail from a cow trail. It's like winding up this. We're talking about the Himalayas, right? We're talking about this hill, right? And then I look over the side of the road where we parked, and there's the sign, Babaji's cave, with an arrow pointing up, but somebody picked it up and had thrown it. So you didn't know which trail it was from. You didn't know which way the arrow was, pointing. Mm-hmm. So there we were. So I said, well, we'll take that one. So we get on there and we start hiking, and we're totally lost. I realized at this time I was suffering. I had a problem I was having since Vietnam. I got blown up in Vietnam by a rocket, mm-hmm. Chinese rocket, and at about 20 feet in the air, and I landed on my forehead, snapped my neck, my back, and it knocked me out. Mm-hmm. And I had a super concussion that was never treated. I don't even know how you treat a concussion, but it was never treated, never taken care of. And over the years, it progressively got from migraines to having seizures. Mm-hmm. And I was having lots of seizures. So that was one problem. And then I was having heart problems. I mean, I was having heart attacks and stuff. And, and then I got dysentery while I was there. The first 3 weeks, I lost 26 pounds in 3 weeks in India. Wow. We don't want to discuss how. Yeah. But I'm walking this trail with the same problem, so I had to take detours. And anyway, and in the detours, there's something like poison ivy there. I don't know what it's called there, but you go out there and you touch these things, and you get the just like poison oak rashes, right? Big lumps everywhere, and you scratch, and had them all over everywhere, right? So I didn't bring any water. I didn't bring any food. I was wearing just a T-shirt. No matches, no flashlights. No, mm-hmm. I mean, we're not prepared for anything. Now we're getting up in some height, and it's getting cold. And the shadows from these tall mountains, early in the afternoon, you're getting a shadow cast because the sun is just a little bit lower. And this was like October, so it's a little lower. And so we're in cold dark, shade darkness. I mean, it's still light, but it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, after being lost several hours, we finally see that at the top of the hill, there's a chapel, a temple. We go up there, we got the keys, we unlock it, and it's Babaji's temple they built. So we know we're at the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Go inside, I just lay down, and my heart is going boom, 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 boom. I mean, I could tell I'm having problems, right? I'm lightheaded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a spiritual experience. This is a physical experience. I'm having problems.
Right.
So meditate for about a half hour to rest, because the cave, according to what the guy told me, is another couple 100 yards uphill, real windy up this hill. I mean, like practically straight up. And so we go up, and my heart is killing me. We finally get up there, and they got a jail. There's these bars, iron bars coming down. They had to put an iron gate to keep vandals and people out of this cave. I mean, even in India, where we respect these sacred things, people would go in there and they were chipping away the rocks. This is from Babaji's cave. And then they would sell it. And this is from Babaji's cave. I mean, this crazy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had the keys. We opened up, and we had the entire cavern inside to ourselves. And before I left, I sat down on my computer and I typed up a list, number 10 indicia, small letters. Everybody that I wanted to pray for on my first trip to India. I didn't know it was going to be my last trip, the only trip, whatever. And so I put everybody on this list: family, friends, high school buddies, army friends, neighbors, people that I met, and enemies, bosses, everybody I could think of, I put on this list. And some people I didn't know who the name was. I'd say beggar that I met in some restaurant or on the street corner, and a hitchhiker that I picked up. I figured God knows who they are, right? So I had all these people in there with just a little keynote, so I knew who they were. And so I took this list with me to the Ganges, by the beginning of the Ganges, and the various holy places downstream. And I took it to the Dalai Lama's place where he was at. I took it to all the main spiritual hubs and temples. But when I got here to this cave, that was the most important place. I took it out. It was like 3 sheets, 2 sides, printed. Oh. And I mentally read it. Well, my friend's kind of looking at me like, what's this? I said, no, because there was a part of me that said, these people are never going to come to this cave, ever.
Yeah.
And if there's a blessing to be had, then I wanted my friends and my enemies and my families and my neighbors and the people I've met along the way to get equal blessing.
Did you take a picture of the cave while you were there?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I do. I got pictures in, and I should share those with you at some point. You could post them or something. But so there I was. And by the way, a footnote on that, because we're going to go to a near-death experience coming down the hill here. Mm-hmm. But I took that list to a sunrise boat ride on the Ganges. Sun's coming up. When the sun's come up in India, when there's all that pollution, you get beautiful skies because the polluted air gives you orange and weird colors, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's really beautiful, right? And I read the list out there as the sun's coming up on the Ganges River. And then I got a match. I burned it, held it up to its very corner till it was just ash. I let it go. So I actually consecrated that list. So it was end up in the Ganges. So it was just kind of nice. It was a poetic thing. I'm a poet, so I just felt right thing to do, right?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So there I'm back in the cave. And in the cave, my heart is going boom, boom, boom. I mean, I've got something going on. I know I got something bad going on, and I'm getting dizzy. And so we have to leave. Got to get back. So we lock everything up. We're coming back, and my friend goes, well, you lead the way, which was a stupid thing because I didn't know where I was going, and and I was feeling terrible. And I'm walking, and we're another hour or two. We're not even finding the trail we came up on. And he looks at me and says, "We're lost." And I'm standing there, and there's a 30-foot cliff. I mean, 30-foot cliff. The only good thing about this cliff is it went about 10 or 12 feet, and then there was like a couple foot ledge, and then it would go down another 10 feet. Then there was a 1 foot ledge or 3 foot ledge, and then it landed on a big boulder at the bottom, about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. Mm-hmm. Best I can remember it as I was cascading down. I'm standing on the edge of this thing with my heart going boom, 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 and then getting slower, boom, boom. And then it's like I'm fading out. Mm. And next thing you know, I'm bouncing, I'm falling and bouncing. That's the thing that saved me. Had I made a straight fall onto the rock 30 feet, probably been pretty darn bad. But I hit about 8-10 foot, and then about 8-10 foot, and then flopped on my back. On my back. Could have been a serious injury, right? Yeah. I ended up on my back looking up. And I'm laying there looking up. And I'm seeing the sky. And it's kind of like that cartoon, The Simpsons, mm-hmm. and the sky opens up with the clouds. That's what it's looking like. I'm thinking that in my head, too. I'm going, wow, The Simpsons or something. I'm watching the sky, right? Mm-hmm. And next thing I know, I'm looking back down. And I see my body. I go, wait a minute, I've been here before. I've seen my body looking like that before. I'm looking at this body down there, and there's no pulse. There's no breathing. There's no life. It's just limply laying on the rock, right? And I'm looking down at this. I'm going, okay, if this is it, I've got my 50 years are in. If this is it, mm-hmm. this is good. It's all right. I've been to Babaji's cave. That was on my bucket list, literally mm-hmm. on my bucket list. Okay, I can handle that, right? So I'm up there feeling loved and blissful and at peace, not really having any great desire to go back to that body that was in real bad shape, having a heart attack. And mm-hmm. it was in a lot of pain when I left it. And I'm going, I'm happy that this is all right. And then I look down there, and I'm seeing coming out of this tall grass, crawling across my feet, is a cobra.
Wow.
Now, my wife always got mad at me, and I always throw this in the story because I always have to be, you got to be honest with people. Because first time I told the story, it was like 6.5, 7 foot. And then I think I told it about 10 years later, and the thing was, it was a king cobra. It was like 15 feet. So in truth, I have no idea how big this cobra was because I never saw its full body. Because coming out of the grass, slithering across both feet, and then going into its grass on the other side. So it's on the other side, 6-8 feet away, and its tail is still coming out of the grass on the other side. So it tail's in the grass on one side, the head's in the grass on the other side, and the middle of the body's going across my feet. So I have no way to guess how big that snake was, but I'm watching this thing, and it's great. And so I'm watching this, and it's like all of a sudden there's this great love. My heart is just bursting with love for this snake.
Wow.
Go figure, right? I didn't know all the stories about what the cobra represents in India, the Kundalini energy and all that. I had no clue. All I know was, that's my brother. That's I love that snake. And next thing I know, it was like paddles, like the fire department comes out and goes, clear, kook, and whatever that was, they defibrillate you or something. It was like 2 paddles on my chest. That snake going across my feet was like 2 paddles on my chest. It was on my feet, and all of a sudden it was like, clear, boom, and I jump up off the rock, and next thing I know, I'm in my body. And my friend's looking at me like I'm a crazy man from 30 feet up above. Uh-huh. And I'm grabbing onto the body of this snake. The snake's body, where I'm trying to grab onto, now here's my hands like this, if the people are watching this. I couldn't get these hands, the fingers to touch. I couldn't wrap it all the way around the body of the snake. It was like this. So it was bigger than the 2 hands could grasp. Mm-hmm. So I have no clue how big the snake was. I don't know if it was a king cobra, what, but it was bigger than my grip. And it kept sliding through. Common sense would say, well, if you grab a snake, snake's going to turn around and think, what are you doing to my body, right? Mm-hmm. It didn't. It just kept slithering. And then I started wading into the grass where I couldn't see my feet. And I'm putting my hands down where I can't see my hands. And I'm trying to grab the snake, and it keeps slithering through it for about 10 yards. I mean, I'm just chasing the snake until it comes this little trickle of a waterfall coming down, about an 8-9 foot waterfall into this little creek. And there was a little space behind the waterfall. And I'm watching the snake just slither into that space. I almost reached in there, but part of me said, nah, okay, he's home. But that would have been really smart, right? I'll reach right there. But while I'm there, we're looking at that, I remember reading in the autobiography of a yogi that after Larry Masha had this great experience with Babaji, and he materialized this palace, golden palace for him, and then dissolved it. That's a great story in itself. But afterwards, he was told, go down to the creek and wash up, and and in other words, chop wood, sweep the porch, gather water, it's all. So the same things. He went down there and he washed up and everything, and of course, when I'm reading the book, it was like there was a little tiny waterfall in the creek, and I'm thinking, that's what I was thinking. I thought, was this a spot that nobody's ever found? Because nobody has it. They don't know where that's at. Nobody labels it. Nobody says where. They know where the cave's at, but they don't know where he went. I could never find this place again to save my life. We found it by being lost. Anyway, so then I was thinking about that. So meanwhile, we figure, I don't figure, my buddy with me, he says, look, all water flows downstream. We're going to follow it down. We'll find a house, a farm, a road, something. We went down, we found a farm. We paid these kids $2, $3. They were happy. Help us find our car. They knew exactly where it was at. I mean, how many white people walking around, park a car up in that neighborhood? They knew where a car was at. So they found us. They got us there. And then we got back just as the Swami, remember him? Mm-hmm. He was locking the gate. It's that time. We pull up and he goes, did you find it? And I go, yeah. And he goes, come on inside. And of course, I'm in there and I got a torn shirt. I got dirt all over from the fall. Mm-hmm. I got lumps from the poison, whatever it was, oak or whatever it was. I got lumps all over. I sweat so much. I sweat so much on that hike that I stopped sweating, which now people tell me, no, that's not a good thing. Right. No, you're dehydrated. That's a bad thing, right? So I was dehydrated. And I had a heart attack and I had a brain seizure. So all that happened on that falling off the cliff. Mm-hmm. So I proceed to tell the guy the whole story. Detail by detail. And then this woman from Alaska, of all places, she was from Alaska. She was staying at a hotel in town and she was just meditating at the ashram when she was leaving. She heard the story. And then she kept interrupting me. She goes, Mister, don't you know what they say? She said that about a third time. I'm going, okay, what do they say? And she says, it is said that those that have the most arduous journey to Babaji's cave have the greatest blessing. And the Swami looked at me and said, everybody walks away and I'm standing there, and it's like about 35 degrees temperature. I can see my breath. And I got a T-shirt on and I was chilled and shaking and everything. And I go, and that just warmed me up. I just felt, no, that's good. Let's go meditate, right? So that was the near-death experience. Now here's where the 2959 come in. That was my second near-death experience.
Before you go there, let me stop you and ask you something here. Yeah. Two things. Why was it that you wanted to catch that snake so bad? And two, do you think it's possible that was Babaji manifesting himself as the snake leading you to that waterfall?
Well, there's an answer to that neither one of us will know. We perhaps think. And at the time, years later, when I went back to India, let's see, 2014, that was 2004. Next time I went back to India was 2009. I went to this ashram and they had all these rooms. None of the rooms had any images or pictures in them. They were all barren. The guru says, I got a special room for you. He puts me in this room, and there on the walls, a picture of Lord Shiva with a cobra wrapped around his neck. You know, it was just, I go, oh, wow. And he goes, like the guru goes, I thought you would like this. And then he walked away, right? And I'm going, what does he know that I don't know, right? Anyway, so yeah, it was out of love that I chased that. And I have another cobra story or two to tell after this that'll tie that in. So there I was. That was like October. I was on that journey till just about a week before Thanksgiving. I come home. Now you think a normal human being, after having all that happen, as soon as they got to civilization, they would check in with the medical unit, right? Well, let's go check in and see a doctor. Nah, you know, yeah, I'm okay now, right? You know? Yeah. So I go home, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then at Christmas, around January, I'm still having problems with the heart. But then I got a new problem. Right here, I got a cancerous tumor at a big thing. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor goes, that looks like a cancerous tumor. We gotta operate. I said, wait a minute, doc. You can operate on my spiritual eye? And then she laughed because she was an Indian. She understood what I was talking about. I just went to India, right, to find the guru on the mountaintop, right? And then I come back after having all these beautiful experiences, which we could go into this more. But I come back and the cancer of my soul basically is getting removed. It's like taking the cancer out of me for my spiritual life. It was so symbolic. I thought that was kind of cool. Anybody else would say, oh my God, you're going to operate on, you got cancer. And I mean, what's going on, right? So, in fact, when I got it, I took the bandages off the next day. And my wife goes, well, you walk around all those stitches. I said, no, I'm proud of it. This is cool, right? There was 9 stitches. It was just cool. Anyway, another whole story. So a month later, after having collapsed in my garage, collapsed on my couch, having a heart attack, basically 6 or 7 of them, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe this thing's not going to go away if I keep ignoring it. Maybe I should take care of this. So I tell my wife, because I'm having a full-blown heart attack, but you never know because I'm talking just like I am right now. I mean, I've had enough of these. I mean, I had at least a dozen major of them, but I'm always like this. And people go, what? So I tell my wife, I'm going to drive to Kaiser Hospital. That's my HMO here in California. I'm going to drive to Kaiser. It's like 7 miles away. And I told my wife, I'm just not feeling so good. I'm going to get myself checked out, just urgent medicine or ER, whatever it'll take me. You sure you don't want me to drive? Nah, I'm good, right? I get in my pickup truck. I drive 7 miles. I go to ER. And if you've ever been to an ER at any hospital, there is no parking. You have to end up driving around the block and down the street to find a place to park and then come all the way back. Unless somebody's dropping you off at the swinging doors where you go in a gurney. So 10 minutes of parking, I come back. I walk inside the building. And there's a line of 18 people in front of me. 18 people. I remember. Wow. It was 18 people all standing in line to this nurse to get admitted. So I'm waiting. I don't know. It's 3-4 minutes a person. So figure that out. I'm sitting there and I'm still dying. I'm having a heart attack. I get up there and they say, "Okay, sir, you got. What's the first question they ask you? Not if you're dying. Do you got insurance here?" That's the first question they asked me. Not, are you bleeding? Are you dying? Can you breathe? It was like, do you have insurance? Yeah, here's my insurance card. Okay. Then they give you a clipboard. They say, okay, fill out all this pertinent data. Make sure you blah, blah, blah. So I go back. I fill out this clipboard. It's 3 pages. It's questions. I get into the second line. There's only 6 or 8 people. Finally get to the lady, the nurse. And she takes the clipboard from me and she looks at it and she says, there's a question on there that says, why are you coming in? I said, well, because I'm having a heart attack. That's what I wrote, right? She looks at me and she goes, well, we'll be the judge of that. She says, how'd you get here? I said, well, I drove my pickup. Oh, yeah, okay. And where'd you park it? I said, down the street. And you're in that line? And I, yeah. Okay, yeah, okay. Let me just take a listen. So she listens. Next thing you know, she goes, my God, you're having a heart attack. And it was like loud and her voice. And she's calling for a gurney and people are coming out. And there's bells and whistles and stuff. And I'm going, what's going on? You're having a heart attack. I said, yeah, I know. I told you that. well, you don't act like it. I said, okay, I'm having a heart attack. Here I am, right? So I go into this doctor and he wants to, we got to do surgery. We got to do this or that. And I go, hey, doc, I said, this is really not too fair. And I said, what do you mean? He says, when I was young, because when I had that first near-death experience at 8 and I got out of the hospital at 9, I became a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. Only one in the family, right? That was I knew I had to do something to change my health. Anyway, so I became a vegetarian. I never drank. I didn't do drugs. I didn't do sugar, didn't do salt. I didn't eat chocolate. I mean, I was like, I didn't do any of that stuff. I was clean, right? Good, healthy diet, meditate. So I'm telling the doctor that. I said, look, how can I have heart problems? How can I have blockages? I said, I mean, I got 6 decades in of pure living, right? And then he looked at me, and this is like February something, and my birthday's in March, where I turn 59, right? Mm-hmm. So this is 58 and just a few weeks left to 58, right? And I was going to be 59. And you remember the 2959, right? Mm-hmm. So he looks at me and he says, had you not taken such good care of your body with your genetics, I would have guessed you'd been dead at 29 instead of almost 59. So there he threw the 29 to 59 out, and I'm going, oh. And then I started thinking, well, 59 is coming. This thing ain't over yet. Right? He wants to operate on me before my 59th birthday, right? And if you believe in astrology or not, when I was born in San Francisco on March 16th, 1946, at 1 something in the morning, there was another Irish Scotsman born there, a guy named Paul H. O'Brien Jr., and I'm William H. McDonald Jr. It's interesting. Parents didn't know each other, but our mothers were hospital mates. They had beds next to each other, I guess. And me and him were in cribs next to each other. We were born like an hour or 2 apart. We didn't know any of that till we met in the 4th grade in a city 45 miles away from San Francisco. I mean, we just had to come up in the conversation. Anyway, so that guy, Paul O'Brien, I figured if anybody shared my astrology chart, you got to be the closest, born in the same place within an hour or so of my birthright, same day, everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, even Irish, I mean, everything, right? He died that year.
Wow.
I just found out about it. I go, oh, he's dead. So I'm in there waiting for this heart procedure, and they're going, oh, this is going to be, you got to get your stuff in order. We don't know what's going to happen. So that was my second near-death experience. And that's how the 2959 all related to that. Which gets us to if we got time, I can tell you the third near-death experience. That takes place in India again. And that's most different near-death experience. Nobody's had one like that. It's just, and then you got to classify it. Was it a near-death experience, or was it some real crazy second body experience? I don't know what the word for having a second body is. Because there's, in 2010, when I was in India for a subsequent journey, the guru at the ashram made me go get a nadi palm leaf reading done. And I said, I don't believe in him. And he says, no, they believe in you. Go get it done. Anyway, this reading they did was ancient reading, which was written 2,500 to 5,000 years ago, which we could talk about another show about those. That's an interesting subject. But part of that reading made a bunch of predictions, which all came true. And one of those predictions was, at a certain time and a certain date, I was going to go to a temple in southern India, a Shiva temple. And when I got there, I was instructed I'd walk uphill for 2 to 4 hours. I'd go up this hill. And on top of this hill would be all the rishis waiting for me. I don't know, was it 18 of them, 18 rishis or something?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know who the rishis were, what he's talking about, right? And he says, and you will be with them and you won't ask any questions, because any question you could ask, you will have the knowledge yourself to answer. So that was a strange prediction. And then he made another prediction about Babaji, Lord Shiva, blessing me, getting oil and water on my head from the sky and getting this blessing and chant and all that stuff. So there was some weird stuff in there that had happened up to this point. This was 2011. I had a heart attack in India, in Mumbai. But I came all the way back to America, collapsed at the airport in Denver, 6 hours with paramedics. They put me back on an airplane, believe it or not, came back to Sacramento, 4 days in ICU just to get ready for the operation. So when I'm having open heart surgery. And I don't know if you know anything about open heart surgery, quadruple bypass, where they put you on a heart-lung machine, which means they stop your heart and they stop your lungs. And they have a machine pumping oxygen into your blood, and your arteries hooked up to this machine, and the blood is going into it. So they're bypassing the heart, literally bypassing the heart. And so they told me that's what they're going to do, and they're going to, cut it down and, saw whatever, clippers, whatever they use. And then this guy with a great bedside manner is telling me that I'm laying on this cold steel table, bare naked, getting ready for this guy to knock me out and to do this. And I'm just curious. I'm going, well, what are you going to do? And his bedside manner is, well, I'm going to rip your chest open. And he shows me these saws, and these look like hedge clippers, like you get them, like a tree branch, those kind of things, pruning things. And he says, anyway, and then I'm going to stop your heart and all that. Oh, that's really great. I needed to know all that. And he says, but then I'm going to have you on this heart-lung machine. I said, well, on the heart-lung machine, am I going to feel anything? And he says, interesting you asked that question, because there's a small percentage of people, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5% at the most. He says there's no real numbers on it, but just a tiny percentage of people feel what happens once we have you on that machine and do all this stuff, because we have to cut back on the anesthesia, because we could lose you. So that's a big part of the operation, is you're hooked to the machine, right? So you get less anesthesia. So I was one of those people that felt almost everything, but that's another whole story.
Wow.
So he says, yeah, well, we'll put you out. He says, we're going to be keeping you alive. No, he says, we're going to be keeping your body alive by having this pump oxygen into you. He says, so if the pump goes off, you're not alive. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, great. Hope the power stays on, right? So you count backwards from 100 to you get to about 90 something. You forget, you're gone, right? I'm gone. They give me an injection and I'm gone. I'm floating out. But it's like that. Boom. I'm gone. And I find myself physically standing back in India, southern India. I knew it was southern India. I don't know why I knew it was southern India, because there I just plop, and there's this Shiva temple standing here, and I'm going, that's the Shiva temple that the prediction said I was going to go to. And this is the time I'm supposed to be there. I mean, it's just right about the deer and everything. That's why I'm supposed to be there. But I was expected to be there in the real world, right? I'd make a trip, right? So here I am in this physical body. I'm thinking, well, I must be a ghost, or I must be an astral travel thing here or something, because, and then people were looking at me and bumping into me and looking at me when they feel me and I feel them, and I'm going, no, I was flesh and blood. And of course, the other thing, I think my grandson asked me a question. He says, well, Grandpa, if you were naked on the table, did you have clothes on there? And I go, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
this was
a good question.
But I had clothes on. I got to go, what? I mean, I didn't even think about it until he asked me that question, but yeah, I had clothes on. So it was like, wow, all right, so that's kind of neat. So I start walking, and I walk, and I'm thinking, well, the guy told me it was going to take 6 to 8 hours, this operation. Well, what was my instructions when I got this temple? Walk 2 to 4 hours uphill. I got nothing else to do. So I walk up this hill. I smell the fragrance of the flowers growing on the hillside. I feel the ground. I can breathe in the air. I'm even breathing. I mean, and while I'm walking up this hill, I'm also feeling hands and instruments and things going on inside my chest in the other body. It was weird. I'm going 26,000 miles away in another whole dimension. I feeling the operation. So I keep walking up this hill, and then I get to the top of the hill, and as expected, sitting on a stump of wood and on a log and on some rocks around a little fire, there's these rishis. I believe there's 18 of them. I didn't count them, but whatever the amount, all the rishis are there, and I'm assuming there must have been 18. And then there was another guy there. The original guru that had sent me to get my reading, he was there. He's got his arms folded. He goes, "Bill." There was this guy there. Gurnoff was his name. And I stand there and I'm looking at all this stuff, and it's just beautiful. It's amazing, right? And the guru is telling me, you could give up a beat. He says, you could skip a beat, but don't give up your heart. And he kept saying that to me several times during this thing, right? I'm going, okay, it's an odd thing to say, you know. And then remember that clouds I had when I was 8 years old? Right. They're back. The cloud is back, right? It's just all the way around me. There's just clouds. And I hear this soft, feminine voice. Like the most beautiful woman. Picture the most beautiful woman's voice you could ever hear, right? So, I mean, like an Irish singer, right? I mean, beautiful voice. And saying, "Bill, you've done enough this lifetime. You don't have to do anything anymore. You don't owe anybody anything. You've suffered enough pain." And I've had a lot of pain. I mean, it was very painful. And I'm going, yeah, I've suffered a lot. So I'm hearing this beautiful thing. She says, "Come with me." She says, "Just give up your heart. I have bliss, joy, peace, love, unconditional for you. It's waiting for you." And the guru's going, "No. You could skip a beat, but you can't go back to this is boring." I go, "What are you going to do for me?" He says, "I'm going to give you more pain, and I'm going to give you more suffering than you ever had, because you have to learn to handle that to teach others." And I go, he says, "No." He says, "Every time you had pain, you bliss out." Like I for example, I used to get, you get my teeth done, and you drill down to the nerve. I never got the shots. Just drill it. And the dentist be, "Oh, you sure you don't want a shot?" And he knows it's on the nerve, right? I just go, do it. So I just get it out of my mind. But now this guru is saying, "No, you stick around. I'm taking that away from you. You're going to feel everything."
Wow.
And I go, that's not enough. And then he kind of does this. And all these clouds, all I see is faces. Thousands and thousands of people. Old people, young people, black people, brown people, Asian people, Indian people, Scot and Irish, of course. Everybody's there, right? I mean, it's just children, everything. Some people in wheelchairs, some people happy, some people sad, but they're all looking to me like there was something I had to give them. And the guru basically told me that if I left, I didn't owe these people anything. I've done enough. But if I left, these people wouldn't get what I could give them, whether it was a smile, advice, teach them how to meditate, help them keep from doing suicide, feed them a meal, whatever it was, inspired them with a video, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like they were all big, huge things. Some were small things, but I could tell some there was a real major need. This was going to be a crossroads period when I met this person. When I met them, when I meet them, they would need it. And I'm looking at that, and the guru kept saying, "You could skip a beat, but you can't. You could skip your heart could skip a beat, but anyway." So he just kept coming back that you can't give up your heart. And so I'm in there contemplating that, and I really didn't want to. I'm thinking, man, she's offered me bliss. She's offered me joy. She's offered me peace. She's offered me love, and you're offering me pain. That's not a very good sales job. Right?
Yeah.
And plus, you give me the work for all these people. I got to work for these guys, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm feeling more stuff going on in my chest, right? People are pushing instruments and things. I feel metal and things. And all of a sudden, on the table, operating table, they must have took the two little paddles and jump-started my heart. Because all of a sudden, it's like, whoo, I just like that. And next thing you know, I feel the steel table on my bare butt. I feel it, and I'm going, this is not too good. But I got a tube down my throat, and I got stuff up my nose and my neck, and then I don't know if it was my imagination or not, because I don't know if they do that, but I felt like my eyes were taped shut. I don't know if that's true or not, but I couldn't open my eyes because I'm going. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to say, look, I feel everything. Can you give me some anesthesia? And they still had 45 minutes or more to go. I mean, they're sewing up the artery, well, I guess it was sewn up by the time they started here, but they had to wire the chest together, literally, and put the cage back and sew the, staples on. There was a lot of stuff they were still doing. And I am cognizant of the fact that this is all the stuff they're doing. Oh, now they're doing this. Now I could visualize it. I couldn't see it, but okay, now they're wiring. I could hear the conversations. So it's a terrible position to be laying there. All that stuff going on, right? So finally, a couple hours later on, and they move you into a room, ICU, and finally they take the stuff out of my throat. And I just wanted to talk. They gave me a piece of ice, and it felt like the greatest gift you could give me. But for the next 10 days, I was having major problems. I had 5 blood transfusions. Didn't go well. But at every time I would shut my eyes or drift off asleep or unconscious or daydreaming, whatever, I was back on the mountaintop with all these rishis. I went right straight back to the mountaintop. And having all these people's, images in front of me. And with the guru going, you could skip a beat, but you can't give up heart. And I kept hearing that every day, several times a day for 10 days. So finally, about 10 days into this thing, I'm going downstairs for emergency procedure about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And they got a gurney. They put me on this gurney, and the phone by the bed rings. And they won't let me answer. I said, no, I got to answer that. Yeah, I got to answer that. They said, no. We got to take you down. You got an emergency thing. I said, no, I got to answer that. And the doctor said, okay, let him answer. So I answered it, and I heard his voice. This is Gurunov from India. Like, how many Gurunovs do I know, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd say Guru, right? So, and then the next thing out of his mouth is, you can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. Mm. And I'm going, I've heard that for 10 days, man. What is going on here, right? Mm-hmm. So then he goes, I still just want to throw it in. I don't want to live. Yes. And then he says, Bill, I just told all these people that I was going to heal you, and I sent them up to the temple to pray. You wouldn't want to embarrass your guru, would you? In other words, don't die, because he just told me he was going to hear me, right? I go, oh, damn it, man. Geez, man, what a thing to tell me. That's what motivated me. He knew nothing else I wasn't going to be motivated by all the other stuff, not by my wife, my grandchildren, all this other help. No, it was, you can't die and embarrass the guru after he tells everybody he's going to heal you.
Yeah.
So I told my wife, I said, I'll be out of here in a day and a half, 2 days. I'll be out of here. And I was. But my next to last day in the hospital, one of the other weird predictions, remember the one about the oil and the water in the hair from Babaji and Lord Shiva and all that? I'm laying in the bed, and all of a sudden there's this dome of light, like energy source, like somebody took a bowl, glass bowl, and put it over the bed. Mm. On the other side of that is the world. It's like everything else going on. But inside of that, at the bottom of my bed, stood this avatar, long black hair, young looking, no shirt. It's my vision. I'm looking at him. He's got Levi's on. Mm-hmm. So he's got Levi's on and barefoot, but he's got no shirt on. Mm-hmm. He's got this long black hair, and he's pouring oil and water on my head. Mm-hmm. Now I didn't think about this till about a year ago. I said, wait a second. He's at the end of my bed, which is about 6.5, 7 feet away, and he's pouring this stuff on my head if he's standing there. So at the time, I didn't question that, but he's at the end of the bed, but he's pouring the oil and water on my head. So somehow his hands are right there. Mm-hmm. But, when you're having that, you don't question it, right? So it was a beautiful experience. I'm thinking, well, I'm probably on drugs. And if you can have a delusion, this is a beautiful delusion. But I thought, well, that's interesting. That's what was predicted, right? That was what was predicted because he was chanting and everything. So I come home from the hospital. My daughter comes over to visit. She says, I saw the old neighbor, David, and he was at the hospital. And I go, no, he didn't come visit me. He says, no, he was there yesterday. And I said, no. He says he went to your room and he walked into the room and you had some young, crazy Indian guy with long black hair with no shirt on, bare feet, was pouring garbage of some kind of salad dressing or water or something on your head. And he was chanting this Indian stuff that he thought was funny. And he started to laugh and he left because he didn't want to embarrass you. And I go, he saw that? Then I told my daughter, and we both realized there was a witness to what happened. Wow. So as with my dream with, you could skip a beat, but don't give a part. And then the guru says that. Mm-hmm. And then as with his experience at the end of the bed, and then this guy verifies that, that's what he saw, but he thought it was just some crazy young Indian guy. So that was my 3 near-death experiences.
Those are fantastic.
Tell me brief. We just taken over an hour to be brief. So there you go.
I was going to say, well, first of all, those are fantastic experiences, and thank you for sharing those with me. And yeah, we went right through my hour, so I'm going to have to definitely.
Sorry, you got any questions?
That's it. Show's over. Bye. I definitely want to have you back. I mean, as I knew just looking at your new YouTube channel, that there are a lot of things to talk about. I mean, I could have many, many segments with you.
We got all the miracles and supernatural stuff happening in the Vietnam War.
I want to talk to you.
There's trips to India.
Yeah.
Miracles, unbelievable stuff. That's a whole show.
Yeah.
Then there's the rest of my life. And then there's time travel. There's UFO.
Yes.
Productions. I mean,
I've written the UFOs down. I've written down time travel. I've written down Babaji. So those can all be separate shows. So let's say this before we go here. I want to help people find you. So what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Okay, my YouTube channel is Rev Bill McDonald.
Okay, Rev Bill McDonald.
I'll send. I sent you a link, so if you put that on the body of this, someplace how they can find me, and my website, which has links to everything from there. The website's just www.revbillmcdonald.com. All one word, revbillmcdonald.com.
All right.
But if they could Google me, I come up videos all over the place. Mm-hmm. I got over 100 and some videos, individual stories, interviews, everything. Even I find them interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have a Facebook page? And if so, do you interact with the public, or are you more of a private guy?
No, I believe it or not, sometimes I actually give people my telephone number. It depends who they are and what their situation is.
Wow, that's great.
I kind of triage the situation. If somebody looks like they're on the edge, and I've dealt with suicides this year, most especially, and people that are depressed and saved a few marriages, a few children, and everything else. So I go with my feelings. If I feel like I want to give you more, I give you more. But I answer. I make it a point to, if you write me on my email, contact me, I will respond to you in some manner. Mm-hmm. Maybe a short message back, maybe a conference call, maybe a Zoom, maybe a Skype. I will find it. It really depends what I sense. If I sense that you're one of these people that I saw your image in, I had one the other day. She sent me a note. A lovely lady in Florida. She sent me a note, said she saw my video, didn't expect any response back, just wanted to say that she enjoyed the videos. And I go, no, I got to contact her. I contacted her and talked to her on the phone and got things going. And I looked at her picture on her website and I'm going, I have to help her. I have to help her. Whether she knows it or not, I have to help her. So that's the way it works. So everything in my life is done not logically, not with data, not with 2 + 2 = 4, because in my world, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 all the time. 2 + 2 could equal red. I mean, it doesn't have to, it's, in my world, only thing that's real is love. And since God is the only reality, then God is love and love is God. But that's another whole discussion if we want to talk about that. So that's why I got over 100 some videos, because there's so many topics and there's so many things. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
There's so little time in the hourglass. The sand is slipping through.
All right. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you giving me this hour. Hopefully soon we can get back together again and talk about another one of these topics. And I wish you a great evening and have a great weekend.
Same to you. And let me know when you post this up. And for those people out there, if they will find my email out there, but they don't have it. If they got a good memory, because most people don't, I don't. But Huey, like the Huey helicopter, HUEY, 576, Huey576 @gmail.com.
Okay.
So that's about as easy as you get.
All right, Bill. Well, thanks and have a great evening.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.